You know, if there's one question to get asked more than any other, more even than when you think of the phrase throw your hands in the air like you just don't care, why would you actually bother doing that if you didn't really care? The question would have to be, Mark, is the Pentax Espio 115M a secret bargain in the pantheon of film point and shoots, or is it just another generic lump of future landfill to plague your photographic aspirations? Well, today we're going to try and answer that question. Yes, speaking about throwing our hands in the air like we just don't care, well, I'm metaphorically madly gesticulating at the thought of putting this camera to the test. I mean, look at it. It's a point-and-shoot film camera from the 1990s. I purchased this one as part of a job lot of 3 for about $15 back when no one wanted these. And I remember because the person I purchased it from complained that the cost of postage ended up being more than the eBay auction went for. Well, that was then, and this is now. A working one of these will cost you well over 100 Australian dollars, which is around 2.5 million Iranian rials, or about 50p sterling. So not a bargain anymore, but really, when you think about it, this camera came out in 1996 for around $400 to $600, not even adjusting for inflation. So it's still cheaper now than it was back in the day, albeit with dying electronics and no warranty. But this is a nostalgic camera. Don't buy this if you want digital perfection. However, if you hanker after those photographs like your mother used to take, you know, the ones with people's heads cropped off, diabolic red eye, or just a mess of blur or out of focus blobs, well, maybe this is the camera for you. But let's not jump the gun or be too cruel yet. To test it out, I took it out onto the streets of Tokyo on a walk from Togoshi Ginza Station to Rinshi no Mori Park with a roll of Kodak Colorplus 200 to see if, the occasional accidental decapitation aside, I can actually take a clear picture with it. Let's get the obvious comment out of the way first. I missed plenty of shots. I mean, this really is photos your mother could have taken back on that 1998 summer holiday. You know, the one that you've tried to block out of your mind, where your dad spent the whole time drunk and asleep, and all of your mum's photos seem to end up as blurry pictures of the taxi driver Miguel without his shirt on. But I digress. Other than the Japanese subject matter, yes, there were many blurry photos. The takeaway here is that 200 speed film just doesn't cut it when you're zoomed in. And under the shade of an enclosed shopping street, I'll get onto the technical image quality later, but it's difficult taking photos on a device that doesn't give much feedback. Fair enough, I got lots of warning lights telling me to use a flash that I happily ignored, so some of the blame has to rest with me. But I'm used to getting photos that are usually at least technically okay, even if they're boring pictures. So this is kind of humiliating, really. But hey, let's not blame myself when I have a perfectly suitable camera to pile all my scorn onto. Now, the reason why I chose to take this with me wasn't because it was my best point and shoot. I'm still thinking that I'm reserving that for my Canon SureShot 120 Classic that really deserves more time in the YouTube sun. But it did appeal to me because of its size, weight, and general convenience. It's small. I mean, not quite as small as the Rolly 35 TE that I've featured on the channel recently, but it's a slimmed down version of the previous Pentax 115, coming in at that sweet spot when the technology had got pretty good for point and shoots, but at the same time people hadn't switched to digital yet. Now, I don't know how many units were made, but there was a huge market for these things, and Pentax seemed to be the dominant player in the segment. Not so much as building up to quality, but down to a price. So it's small and it's light and it operates just like every other point and shoot, where you point to the subject, half press to focus, recompose, and hope that the flash doesn't fire off accidentally, or you truncate one of Miguel's important appendages. Honestly, other than that, it doesn't offer much in the way of features. Its exposure modes are pretty much limited to self-timer, remote, and infinity, and your flash modes cycle through on, off, night exposure, and bulb exposure with or without flash, though really, you'd want the optional remote for many of those. Like many cameras of this generation, its felt good looks are instantly destroyed by the cacophonous grinding and tromboning of the front element when you zoom. And let's add to that the patented lag between pressing the shutter button and the camera actually taking a picture, accompanying your missing decisive moment with an unsatisfying squelch like the sound of a wet fart. Am I being cruel here? Well, look, I'll reserve my judgment just based on one roll. Let's give this thing a chance. And what better way of leveling the playing field than trying it in another location and with another film? This time, Guilin in China and Ilford HP5 Plus pushed to 800 to mitigate that slow shutter. Yeah, don't get your hopes up.
Do with a bit of a clean, should be alright. Okay, let's go. Okay, so let's start walking. This is what we've got again. We've got the Pentax 115M. This time I'm in Guilin in the southern part of China. It's actually getting close to winter now. Normally this would be a hot and humid location, quite close to Vietnam, and with those beautiful limestone hills that stretch across the river and give it that kind of otherworldly, ethereal look. Well, we're actually in the city today, and why not? Because isn't the urban landscape just as beautiful as the natural landscape? And isn't it a perfect place to shoot ISO 800 film? Actually, it's HP5 pushed to 800. Let's give it a go. All right. Not a good photo, but it's the first photo down, and that's the most important thing. I quite like the keys. I wonder if I could do something with them. I guess this is going to be a bit of a test of the macro. Except it doesn't have macro. We're really just testing the camera today. Just a short break in work. Gets very boring after a while. Ah, this looks more interesting. Now, I like the light here. It's both dark and light. Don't want the car in the way, obviously. Wow. Alright, that's quite awesome. I like the colours, they're not going to come out. Does it work in black and white? I think it does, just simply because of the framing. But I need to probably get a bit further back. This thing is 38 to 115, so... So far I have not tested this lens at all. It's not wide angle. If I could try and get those poles, really I'm after the guy. Will that work? That may do, that may not. Ah, so look, it is impressive. Oh, turned itself off. Going down, down, down. 12 shots down. Surely. Nice. I quite like that one actually. I don't know how much I'm going to get that lady. Enjoy your coffee. 15 shots, yeah, left. Hang on. I have. Definitely had to get the banners going across down the end. Also, maybe I want all the Hello Kitties. I do want all the Hello Kitties. Look, I have to get that for posterity, don't I? Whee! That's quite nice. Are you going to stay in the middle? I'll do them all the time. Good, she actually hit her face, that was nice. How will this go for foliage? Because turn around. Is there a photo there? Can I get higher? Really, there's nothing interesting about the woman. She's just looks like someone's mum out for a stroll. Quite like the scene though. I don't know. Look, the Guilin Mountains and the chaos behind it. That's a photo. Okay, I have a photo at least.
So there you go, inane commentary to accompany the inane photography, and nobody can say that I didn't give this camera a run for its money. Now, before you go ahead and criticize my technique, just know that I developed both these rolls after I got back home, so I wasn't aware of just how poorly this thing handled high zoom in low light, even with 800 speed film. My bad for ignoring the warning light and trying to shoot without flash, but as with my last roll, there were lots of photos that didn't cut it for me simply by being too blurry. I mean, look at this, and look, I don't even know what this thing is. The culprit is hidden in the spec sheet of the Pentax Espio 115M, and it's that f10.5 maximum aperture when zoomed to 115mm. I'm not going to read through the rest of the feature list. It's there for you to peruse and marvel at, including its wonderful tendency to default to ISO 25 when you put non-DX coded film in there. I mean, seriously, why couldn't you just make it ISO 100, which at least is more likely to be what you're going to be shooting? But that's That's not that unusual, I guess, for these types of cameras, nor is it unusual that the leaf shutter tops out at a modest 300th of a second. Not that I'll ever get there anyway with that f10.5 aperture. I should perhaps have rated this film at 1600 in retrospect. Not all of its shortcomings are documented, of course. You don't realise until after the flash fires accidentally for the first time that that's the mode it'll default to when it's turned on. That produced images like this, that managed to be both blurry and weird at the same time, particularly this strange satanic poodle. Seriously, those eyes are still burning into my soul with the promise of eternal infernal torment. So look, it's easy to damn this camera to hell for its failure to deliver 100% of the time, but what about the keepers? Is it really that bad a camera? Well, no, it can actually be pretty good in the right hands and under the right conditions. Those conditions are where you have time, light, and are close enough to the action not to need to zoom in. This was called the Espio in the civilized world and the IQZoom in the US market. And maybe the message is that it's smart to only shoot this at 38mm. I used to think my photographic IQ was pretty high, but now I'm doubting myself. Picking 6 photographic pebbles pooped out of the Pentax, and look, it wasn't that difficult a job. The focus was pretty reliable for the most part, and many of the pictures came out sharp enough. I say enough because I don't think the resolution quite holds up as well in the corners as it does in the center, such as on this fairly nondescript image. But I can't really complain about the optical quality. It's the mundanity of this image that makes it an also-ran. This one is a bit the same, though I think there are a few more intrinsically interesting details here. I don't count myself as one of those details, though somehow I did manage to squeeze myself into a couple of the other shots that did make it into the final 6. This I liked just because of the geometry, though it could have worked just as well in black and white, and I quite like this one maybe because of its mundanity rather than in spite of it. And of course it still has me in it. This one doesn't, but I know that with this one it resonates partly because it reminds me of the Guilin capsule tower that sadly got demolished before I had a chance to photograph it. I could at least echo those circular windows here. For the black and white, I probably had a bit more choice, not because the photos were much better, but because I tend to be a bit more forgiving of grainy black and white. That said, I nearly included this one simply because it's so sharp, though I did end up defaulting to the better one of the more classical tunnel photos, even if the symmetry in this one is off, which of course is the perennial problem when you're trying to inherently include messy subject matters such as people. The final 2, well, this was a no-brainer again, another iconic use of leading lines, but I'm also including this one as a hint to a different side of Guilin that hasn't really shone through these particular images. Now, neither of these rolls of film were particularly mind-blowing, but hopefully you're here to ride along with the failures as well as the successes. And in that spirit, you're going to like, subscribe, comment, and even ring that notification bell so I can continue to motivate myself to test cameras like the Espio or IQZoom 115, a camera that is capable of producing some good photographs. But is it fair to judge a camera based upon what it's capable of producing rather than what it actually comes out with in the field? Perhaps we should add a metric to this highly subjective review process and judge it on the basis of technical hit rate, in which case I'd still only give this about a 75%, with 9 shots on each roll being basically unusable. But then again, given time, I just learn when not to take a photo and save myself the cost of film. I mean, it's more likely a scenario than putting it on a tripod and using a self-timer every time I want to take a photo at 115mm. In the end, this is a good enough camera for what it was designed for. After all, what quality do you need for post-coital summer holiday snapshots and their subsequent use as part of mum and dad's divorce proceedings? It might not render Miguel in all his Malagan majesty, but as a simple tool to document your life and relive your childhood with an appropriate dollop of nostalgia or trauma, it does the job. Later.